Hi, welcome to James on Guitar. Thank you for coming to watch. Today is going to be my longest ever video and probably the longest video I'll ever make, and that's because I'm going to take you through all of my guitars and all of my amps pretty much, and it's going to be in basically a chronological order because as you'll see, I came back to guitar in this last year and I bought a lot of gear, and so there's a lot to talk about. The few things I'm not going to cover are my bass, baritone guitars, and a couple of guitars that are packed away from when I moved house recently. My Ibanez vintage guitar, there's a video about it here, and my Kramer Focus, which was the subject of a video about the cheapest guitar you could buy in Andertons, the music store, which has got a mixed response, mainly positive, but I didn't realise quite how popular and cherished that line of guitars is. Maybe I came across a little bit sort of, I don't know, churlish about it. It was meant to be a light-hearted video, but anyway, you could go and watch that here. This is going to be a long video, as I said, because I'm going to give a good amount of time to each piece of gear. They're all important to me. Quite a few people have asked to see a video like this, so I hope you enjoy it. Next year will not be as long. This will be an annual video, but normally it will just cover what I bought in that year. And I have bought all of this gear in 1 year, apart from the first guitar, which you'll hear about. So, you know, it was a massive year in that sense. I started this guitar YouTube stuff and I've really enjoyed it. It's growing well. Couple of things to note. There's going to be a new amp announced at the end of the video, which I'll show you and you can hear it, but we'll have another video about it soon. Secondly, you can join my giveaway. I'm giving away a Nobels ODR1 pedal. I'll show you. This is a great natural overdrive pedal that's used by a lot of session guitarists. You just have to subscribe to the channel and comment, and I'm going to give this away when I hit 1,500 subs, which will probably be in about 3 to 4 weeks if all goes well. And then there are also going to be a couple of other giveaway announcements during this video, and it won't be your only chance to hear about them, so don't worry, and they're quite distant away. I'm going to be doing giveaways reasonably frequently, but I'm mentioning a couple of large ones today, so go ahead and watch as much of the video as you can, get all the way through. There'll be timestamps, they're not too close together because there are large chunks of content here. Let me know what you think of this format. As I said, it won't be like this ever again because this covers a massive chunk of stuff, whereas normally there'll only be a few major bits of gear added each year. So I really just wanted to get this one out there. Grab yourself a coffee, a cup of tea, a beer, a glass of wine, whatever you want. Sit down for a while, chill out, and hopefully find it interesting. But if you haven't already, please subscribe. Give this video a thumbs up. It's taken quite a lot of effort, and I'm losing my voice now, which is a good thing for you guys, I imagine. And go ahead and enjoy the video. Cheers. So this all started back in the Christmas of around 1997. I'd been playing the classical guitar for a couple of years, but been dreaming of playing the electric guitar because my dad and my mum both were massive fans of music from the late 60s through to the late 70s and onwards. But all our record collection were the great guitarists and the great sort of musicians of the day, from Jimi Hendrix and Led Zeppelin, of course. Jimmy Page has probably been my greatest guitar hero, all through to everything else, from the Doors to the Rolling Stones, everything. And I obviously idolized my parents, and I wanted to be part of that, and I wanted to play this. And one Christmas, they surprised me late in the day, having given me a small present in the morning, for which I was grateful. But later in the day, Dad sort of did some shenanigans and came back with this. Guitar. Now, it didn't look exactly like this because this year I've had some work done on this guitar. It had a white pickguard, it had the standard pickups, and by the way, this is a 1989, I believe, Fender American-made Strat. That's what I was so proud of, the American-made bit. Back then I didn't know really anything, but I knew that I wanted a standard American Strat. That's what you wanted. I've changed the tuners, the nut, the bridge, everything really has been changed recently. I've got these Monty's custom pickups. I think they're 1962 type pickups, pretty hot-ish. But I'm going to be playing around with different pickups in future. I also had the neck scraped, and it plays really beautifully now. And for a long time, this is all I knew. I mean, Gibson guitars were way out of my thought process. And apart from the Epiphone SG, which I loved for years and years throughout my teenage years, this was my main guitar. And of course, it looks like Jimi Hendrix's most famous guitar, so I was really happy with that. Then it went back in its case when I was about 19 years old, and it didn't come out again for many years, 15 years, until 2020, the year which saw so many of us spend a lot of time at home. And because of that, one day, I think late January or early February, maybe it was a bit earlier than that, I was sort of clearing out some stuff, and I saw that little black case underneath the sofa, on top of our underfloor heating, no less. Couldn't be in much of a worse place, but it doesn't seem to have done any damage to the guitar, even having been there for probably 5 years or so. And I had my Fender Hot Rod Deluxe behind another sofa, and I plugged it in. I didn't have a tuner, so I then went on Amazon, ordered a tuner, which arrived the next day. Then I was in business. Then I realized I didn't have any plectrums. My lead was sort of not in very good condition. The sound wasn't good. The Hot Rod Deluxe was from about the mid-noughties. I think it was the third version, and it was really noisy. You know, it hadn't been used much. So really, it's amazing that I stuck by it. I got my old Spanish classical guitar out, and I did a week or two of just relearning that. You know, some old books that I had, just to get my fingers in position, you know. And then I started devouring everything again, because really my playing had gone to nothing. I couldn't move my fingers around. So this guitar is really important to me now, even more than ever before. It's the guitar my parents gave me, but it's the guitar that's given me back my passion. And I'll never, ever, ever get rid of this one. Go forward a month or so, maybe to about March, and I decided that I needed to explore further. I'd never played many other guitars, really, because when I was 15, 16, going in guitar shops, they wouldn't give you the top shelf guitars back then to play with. They were quite rude, really. I remember down on Denmark Street. So I didn't get a chance to play with anything else, so I decided I was going to make a trip to Andertons. Now, in order to do this, I decided to sell my Rolex watch. I had a blue and gold Submariner. I managed to sell it. My dad wanted it. He collects Rolexes. So I got a nice amount of money to go and spend in that first shopping trip. Now let's talk about the amp first, because I'm not going to play this amp. But the first amp I bought, which was on that day in Andertons, was the Vox AC15, and it's the custom one with the blue Alnico speaker. Now, I didn't know what I wanted out of an amp, to be honest with you, and everything I've learned since then, you know, started that day. I did a quick search, best tube amp for under £1,000, best tube amp for £500, whatever it was. Well, I was in Andertons, and I was playing around with the guitars, which I was more interested in at that moment, and I just thought, I want a slightly better amp than I've got, just to get me going. So I played through with some various Fender amps, and even an orange amp, and a couple of different, a Vox one, and I didn't even try the Marshall at all. I thought I didn't want a cabinet with a head. I thought that was all too much to start with. I wanted a little combo amp with tremolo, with reverb. So having already picked the two guitars, which we'll get to in a moment, I sat down for a while playing with that Vox, and you know what? It sounded good, and I was in the little sound booth. Brought it home and realised they hadn't given me a power lead with it, so I couldn't even play it that first day or two. I ordered one online, and they also sent me one once I emailed them. I tell a lie. I've been telling a lie. That wasn't the first amp I bought this year. I've just spotted out the corner of my eye. I'm not going to edit this out. I completely forgot. My little practice amp. This was the first amp I bought this year. The Blackstar HT1-R Mark II. This is fantastic, this thing. This cost about £200. I did a video on this, best amp for under $250. You can watch it up here. This thing is brilliant. There are whole weeks when I'm just practicing where this is pretty much the only thing I plug into. It's not as simple as you might think for the money. We've got gain, volume, EQ and reverb, and the EQ voicing aims to go from American side to British side, and it does a decent job. You've got line in, MP3, you've got line out or headphones, you can record directly from here, you've got USB out. Actually fantastic, and I kid you not, this sounds like such a better amp than it is. Go back and watch that video, but I love practicing with this thing. I can have it completely cranked while I'm practicing and it doesn't annoy anyone, so I forgot about that. So anyway, I got my Vox AC15, brought it home, and there we go. That was my first experience of a decent proper tube amp. Just to quickly finish with the Vox, I would say after all these months and all these other amps, it never gets played, unfortunately, anymore. I'm strongly considering selling that one. It's not that it's not a great amp. For the money, it's a very good amp. It just can't do it compared to some of the other amps that I've got now. The only reason I'm keeping it is my wife really likes the look of it. She loves the front cloth more than any of my other amps. So she asked me if I can keep it in the living room, which will look nice. So I might do, or I might sell it, we'll see. But let's get on to what were the two guitars that I bought that day, and what did they, what was the reasoning? Well, this was the next guitar that I bought. It was the first one I bought that day at Andertons. I bought two guitars that day, which felt like the biggest shopping spree of my life. It was fantastic. Having sold that watch, I was able to go in, buy this guitar, my Fender Custom Shop 52 reissue Telecaster in Lake Placid blue. It's got this sort of deluxe, or I don't know what you'd call it. There's finish checking. It's pretty awesome. It's got a very chunky neck. It's sort of scraped at the back. It's very chunky. It feels like proper old school guitar. It's got a lot of resonance. I've enjoyed it a lot. It was my first experience of owning a very high-end guitar. You know, this cost, what, £3,500, being a custom shop and everything. And I bought it because of the Andertons TV channel, YouTube channel, frankly, because obviously Danish Pete plays that purple Telecaster, and they had one of those in the shop, but this is the one that I played and enjoyed. And it was also the guitar that I wanted to keep in the best condition, and I have dropped it already 2 or 3 times with some serious dings. I might take a picture for you. I don't know how it's happened. It's got rash on it. It's just a bit of a mess already, but it's going to be mine forever, so I'm not bothered by that. Now, in terms of playing it, I love the neck pickup. It's incredibly sweet and beautiful pickup. Just don't like the bridge pickup on this guitar, so that's something I might do in this coming year, is change that pickup for something just with a bit more oomph. It's got the Telecaster twang. It's just a bit weedy, to be honest with you. So yeah, I think that's got to be next. And I battle a bit with this neck. When you play any of my other guitars, you come back to this one, it feels like a baseball bat, which sometimes it's what you want. And it maybe slows you down a bit, which is a good thing, in my view, when you're playing the sort of blues stuff that I like to play. But it's just not super comfortable. But hey, that's what I bought. It's a 52 reissue, and it's supposed to be like that, and it's a beautiful guitar, and I'm very happy with it. So what else did I buy that day? Well, this was the next one that I bought that day. I had no idea I was going to buy a Paul Reed Smith. I actually went in to buy a Telecaster and a Les Paul. I was going to make all my guitar dreams come true. Sorry, just seen a bit of muck on the neck. Now, I went in to buy a Les Paul, picked up 5 or 6 Les Pauls. Just straight away, just didn't get on with it. I don't know why. I didn't have enough left in my budget for an R9 or anything, so I was picking up standards. I don't know, maybe subconsciously I thought, this isn't what I want. So then I picked up an ES355, a natural colour one. It was a bit more expensive than normal, so I don't think it was custom shop, but there was something special about it. And man, to this day that still feels like one of those that got away, but only because of this guitar. I was wandering around in the sort of custom shop room at Andertons, which has all the custom shop Fenders and some other top guitars like Paul Reed Smiths, the special Paul Reed Smiths like this one. And I saw a price tag with a big slash on it, and they'd knocked £1,000 off of this thing. I don't know why. I never asked. I didn't want to ask. Maybe it was B stock. Maybe someone returned it, or it just sat there for a long time. I didn't really care. It was in perfect condition. Plugged it in, and as a kid, I was a big Santana fan, and I'd wanted a Paul Reed Smith Santana model for so long when I was younger, which probably wouldn't interest me so much now, but there's something about this that I was interested in. And I thought, in regards to starting a YouTube channel, it was good to have some variety. So, you know, lots of people have Gibsons, and I think Paul Reed Smith is becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. It's definitely the third arm of the sort of guitar world now. But I'd seen this on a channel as well, I think, maybe the Peach Guitars channel. Jack, the great demo guitarist from Peach Guitars, has said that this is possibly his favourite ever Paul Reed Smith guitar, and I can tell you, it is fantastic. I only have one gripe with it, and that, as someone who plays quite often with their fingers, there's not a lot of space left when you have a third pickup in the middle, and I don't really use this third pickup. So I've got half of mine to sell this and pick up something else from Paul Reed Smith, similar, but without the third pickup. I know they do other models, semi-hollow models like that. It might happen, it might not happen, I'm not 100%. This is quite dusty. It's been in its case for a while. And if you've been following the channel, you know I've got another Paul Reed Smith which stays out of its case all the time. I'll explain later why, but this is the special semi-hollow body, beautiful guitar, great versatility. Some of the best guitar tones I've ever heard have come out of this guitar. It can do a really vintage sounding humbucker, which I love. Absolutely love this guitar for that, and if it wasn't for the fact of this third pickup, I'd play this so much more. And I've never decided whether I'm going to keep it, or just keep it for a while and move it on. So it may happen in the coming year, it may not. But it is a gorgeous guitar nonetheless, and my first Paul Reed Smith. But what came next? I think the next guitar was one of the big moments of the year for me. So just going back through my records to see what was next, I think I've got my timeline a little bit wrong. I think I picked up the guitar again the first week of January, and by 24th of January, I'd already bought those 2 guitars and the Vox, as well as the Blackstar. So yeah, I didn't take long, did I? Jump forward now to March, and actually before the next guitar, we've got this amazing amp down here. It didn't take me long, about 6 weeks after that Vox, to start thinking, I want to jump up here a level. And I remember sitting at our kitchen table, writing an email to my wife saying, look, don't go mad, but I'm thinking of buying something pretty expensive, but I think it's going to be really good for me. And I was actually looking at a brown suede head and cabinet Two Rock, because I'd seen one on the Peach Guitars channel, and I was suddenly obsessed by getting a Two Rock amp. Well, it didn't happen then. I chickened out of spending nearly £7,000 on an amp at that point. I thought, no, I need a few more years of playing under my belt, but I can probably do something really good. I would have probably got some sort of custom Fender amp at this point, but nothing seemed to be in stock. And then I was doing a lot of reading on the forums and things like that, and Tone King came across my path. There's not a lot out there about Tone King amps. I think As far as combo amps go, I think people consider them to be so expensive, you know, really, that you don't see a lot of them. But I think it was Paul Davids who had his Imperial Mark I, so I don't even think it had the attenuator. And he loved that amp, and he's obviously a massive YouTuber, and so I trusted his opinion. And he had that Tone King Imperial, but I saw that for a few more £100 you could get the Sky King. I couldn't even really work out what the difference was between the two at that point, but I thought I'll just get the best one. So I ordered my Tone King Sky King, and you know, it's a unique amp really. It doesn't sound like anything else. They'll say that it can do blackface, and on its lead channel it can do tweed and it can do Marshall, but I don't know if it's the voicing of the speaker or whatnot. It doesn't sound like any other amp I've got. It's got its own personality, and it's a fantastic amp. The depth of sound, the depth of the tremolo in it, oh my god, that's what made me fall in love with tremolo, which is my favourite effect. The ambience that you get out of this amp is absolutely phenomenal. So I'm gonna just plug in my Strat, I think, and just play for 30 seconds, give you a little demo of that tremolo. It is honestly a reason I would never sell this amp. It has big low end, so you have to really tame it, but it's a very versatile amp. I would definitely gig with this amp above some of the others that I've got. It doesn't make much noise. It's got fantastic reverb if you need it, and its tone controls, being Tone King, are very sensitive, useful, sound great, and it's got the lead channel, as I said, and it's got enough headroom to deal with pedals, and it's got the attenuator so you could make everyone else happy. Well, unfortunately, this is also a guitar that spends a lot of its time in the case. I haven't really got a justification for that, apart from when you've got quite a few guitars, sometimes one or two of them just end up in the case. I'm going to make it my aim for the next month or two to keep this one out a lot more often. But there's a reason why I keep it in the case. But let's just start from the beginning here. This was the first Gibson I ever bought, and it's also the best smelling guitar I've ever bought. I don't know what they do. Do they put vanilla in, in that lacquer? I had gone to Andertons that first time when I bought the Telecaster and Paul Reed Smith and the Vox to buy a Les Paul and a Telecaster, and just hadn't found the Les Paul for me. Well, I spent a lot of my budget, my early budget that day. So we now jumped forward to April sometime. I bought the Tone King in between, and I've been seeing these on the internet over YouTube, and I was just hooked on the idea straight away of a guitar like this. Something that took me back to the beginning. Looks wise, Goldtop is my thing, along with a lot of other people I know. But I wanted a US made Les Paul. Now, I wanted my first Sunburst guitar to not be a standard. I wanted it to be a custom shop. So I wasn't going to buy a standard. That was my decision from the beginning. So I thought this was the perfect thing to buy. And I made a video about it, and I think it was that video, you know, not that it's a massive video or anything, maybe it's got a few thousand views now, but that really gave me the bug for making YouTube videos more, I think. Got, you know, a decent amount of views early on, and I just enjoyed showing people what I got. You know, it's not showing off, it's sort of sharing the passion. You know, at home, you know, your wife gives you a smile, or when you buy a new guitar, and no one else really cares. So you want to share that moment, and this was that moment. Now, why don't I play it more often? Well, there's 3 reasons. It's the guitar where the G string just won't stay in tune. Now, really, I should get some pencil lead in the nut. So when I restring this guitar, I'm going to do that. Secondly, it's a bit like that old telly. It's got a baseball bat neck. It's not very shaped. And I'm not unhappy with that. That's what it's supposed to be. I'm sure it's based on real necks from the time. But it's not super comfortable. But that's not the main reason. The main reason is actually this bridge pickup. I'm not a huge fan of bridge pickups anyway, although I'm becoming more so as I find better ones. But this one, I just really don't like it at all. So this guitar is going to get new pickups in 2021. I'm choosing between Lindy Fralin P90s and some other. Someone said they'd like to hear Seymour Duncan Fat Cats. I think they're called Fat Cats, I might be wrong. It's not going to be that one. It's going to be one of another 2, but I'll make a video about it, so I'll keep that under my hat for now. But, you know, this is a gorgeous guitar. I'm going to change the pickups. I'm going to enjoy it for a while. But I think it could be part of a future giveaway. It'd have to be a big giveaway. I think we're talking like 50 or 100,000 subs. So we've got a long while to go yet, and there'll be other guitars given away before that, which I'll get to in a minute. But just to pique your interest, shall we say, this could be yours one day with some amazing new pickups in it. But before then, I think I should get more life out of it. And I think over the years, when I give away guitars, they're going to have my playing wear on them and a few dents and dings. That's just the way I am. I keep my guitars, well, when I'm playing them, I keep them out a lot. I lean them up against things. There's only a few guitars which I won't do that with, and I'll tell you which they are later. But I love this thing more for what it represents rather than what it sounds like, I'll be honest with you. But sometimes when you just want that vintage tone and that P90 feeling, this is what you need. So for that reason, it's a great guitar to have. Now, I wasn't even going to bother showing this in this video because it's not a tube amp. But then I thought, it is an amp. It does everything you need an amp to do. It's incredibly tweakable, and you can discover so much using this thing. This is the Kemper Profiler. If you don't know what that is, this basically allows people to profile their amps using a microphone, tweak some settings, EQ, gain, all that sort of stuff, and then put them up on the internet. And some of them are free downloads and some of them you pay for, and you can get a whole plethora of rare vintage amps or modern fantastic amps through this thing. And this was my next purchase because it's not cheap, you know. I want to say it's about 15 or 1800 pounds, but in that you get so much, and I justified it to myself and my wife by saying, well, I'll never need to buy another amp again. Yeah, that's what I said, and I don't regret saying it. And this did quench my thirst for a month or so, maybe a bit more. I played around with it a lot, bought quite a lot of packs. I have nothing against the Kemper Profiler. I will keep it because as I get more into recording, I think there are some things where you just think, I need rhythm guitar number 2. And I might need something from, you know, I don't own the amp that does it, or I just want to record quickly, or whatever reason it is. But I quickly found out that all these knobs and buttons and electrics and everything don't quite get my heartbeat racing as much as the on-clicking sound of a power and standby switch, the thrum of the tubes, the glowing heat and light that comes out of the back of the amp. Really, nothing else does that than a tube amp. So this now collects dust quite often But as I'm setting up my studio, it's going to get its own position. It's going to have cables out the back of it all the time. So quite often, if I just need to do something quick, I could do it on here. I tried using it with pedals. It doesn't do the same thing as a real amp, and it compresses very quickly. Everything in there compresses quickly and gives you this feeling of compression, which is nice, but also doesn't feel that real. But I must say, the sounds from here are fantastic. They just don't have the heart and soul that I was looking for. So as much as I like this thing, and I would recommend it to people who are interested in this sort of thing, it ended up not being my thing, and it didn't stop me buying other amps, obviously. Well, there's another amp behind me now, and I would say this is the amp that really started me off on the rest of the amp journey. This is the Marshall JTM45 reissue. It's I was so excited to get this. I'd never owned a Marshall. Well, no, that's actually not true at all. My first amp, which I don't have here, was about this size. It was a solid state Marshall practice amp. That was the only amp I had for that entire first stint of playing, really, until I bought my Fender Hot Rod Deluxe about 6 months before I stopped playing when I was 19. From the age of 11 to 19, I only had this tiny little size Marshall thing. So scrap that, because I did own a Marshall before, but this was the first Marshall that I owned. Now, bear in mind, this is a few months after the Tone King. It's after the Kemper. It's about 2 days before the next guitar that I was going to buy. I was on the internet again, watching YouTube. It's an evil thing, that YouTube. And I don't know where I saw someone playing a JTM. I hadn't even read much about Marshall amps at this point. I didn't know the names and the terminology. It's possible that my Kemper's to blame. The thing that was supposed to stop me, I think I might have played a JTM profile through it and realised that that was maybe the sound, one of the sounds I was after. With the Strat, it's got that Hendrixy thing going on. Those quite fat, slightly furry, clean tones that I really like, but not scooped like a Fender, not crystal glassy like a Fender. They've got something else to them. And then obviously great overdrive tones. And you're going to hear this amp very quickly with the next guitar, which you'll see in a minute. But this is so far my only Marshall. It's possible I'm going to get another Plexi type amp at some point, Marshall Plexi type amp. But I might have curbed that with one of the later amps, which you'll see. But this Marshall JTM45 opened me up for the first time to having a head amp instead of a combo amp. And for the first few months that I had this, I only ever played it through the UA aux box into my computer, out through an FR cabinet. That was all I heard it through, and I loved it like that. So it's, you know, later when I actually played it through a cabinet with speakers, although they're not the same sort of speakers you would normally play it through, it was an amazing experience. Now, it's an old style amp, it's quite noisy, so I can't often use it on the channel because it's really noisy with pedals. But we're just gonna get the next guitar out in a minute, and then you might hear this amp and that guitar, and it's a pretty great combination. this was the guitar that came next. And boy, what a guitar it is. This is probably the guitar I've dreamt about the most in my life. A Burst. Now, I never knew that I'd buy a 59 reissue custom shop 60th anniversary. It only happens to be a 60th anniversary because that's what there was. I was never that interested in the plaque or the anniversary date, but I wanted my R9. And funny enough, this wasn't my first choice of finish. This was my third choice. And I'm so glad that a few of the shenanigans happened. Turned out that they weren't happy with the condition of the first one I picked at Andertons, so they told me about a few things and I said, okay, pass. I picked another one, then they said, oh, that's a demo guitar, and I'm like, no, I'm not spending over $5 on a demo, you know, that's been out on the shop, especially without a big discount. You know, if they'd knocked a hefty chunk off, I would have been interested. They said it had some wear as well. And then the next one was this, but I hadn't actually seen this one. It was, for some reason, I just hadn't clicked on the thumbnail picture of this. And I'm so glad with all these marks, with this larger area of like faded color here. So glad I got this. All my guitars are covered in dust because I'm living in a building site, by the way. I like to think of it as a protective coating, but I really ought to wipe them more often. So let me only talk about one negative so far. It was a very hot summer, very, very hot, and I was in this tiny little room for a few months in hot weather, like 32 degrees every day, and much more in a hot room like that with all my equipment. And the finish on the neck became very gloopy. It's formed like a rough, sticky finish that is slowly wearing itself away, and I'll be left with a nice finish again. So I'm told. Apparently something that can happen. This one doesn't have as good of a smell as the Goldtop. I don't know why. But boy, I keep this guitar out at all times. It doesn't go in the case. There's just no way. If I'm gonna play a Les Paul, this is my first choice. Everyone always said that 59 necks were pretty fat. This is much more shapely than my 50s Goldtop. So by 59, they'd obviously improved slightly on the neck. I'd really, if I had more money left in the budget right now, I was always thinking I'd like to also get the R0, I guess you'd say, the 1960 models, the V2. You know, there's V1, V2, V3. V1 is basically an R9-ish. V2, I think the neck is slightly thinner, like the 1960s are known for, and the color may not be, you know what, on these they fade in the sunlight, and the 1960s, later in 1960, they got a finish that doesn't fade. So the 1960s that you see now, a lot of them never faded, so they have that very rich color. I think the V2s might have had that, I'm not sure. Either way, I've decided it's probably safe to stick with one custom shop 59 or 60 for now. There's other things to be putting my money into. But this guitar is stunning. It fulfills all of my dreams of Jimmy Page-ness, even though I think his was a 60. It's just got all of that vintage character. It feels beautiful to play. It sounds fantastic. Someone in the comments on one of my videos about this talked about how I probably didn't get the better pickups, that the PAF style pickups, Custombuckers, come in varieties of output, and that the best are if you get the really high output ones. I've got to disagree. I like how low output this is, how woody it is. I don't need tremendous high gain at any point. And this is high gain enough for me, and it gives the real vintage character that I'm after. I like that it's an imperfect instrument, and I'm not someone who, I wouldn't necessarily send a guitar back that turns up with, you know, some dodgy binding or a bit of paintwork dodgy or whatever it is, because that's, as long as it sounds good and it feels nice in the hand, the finish is incidental. You know, over the years, the instrument is going to change with you. You're going to drop it, you're going to scrape it, it's going to have weather conditions that affect it, the finish is going to change and all of that. So its character is its character, and I just absolutely love this guitar. It needs a bit of a wipe. And this is the VOS model. So, you know, they've done a bit of a little bit of aging. It's not in that Fender camp of scraping stuff off and making it look like there's some stickers on it. This is a serious guitar, and yeah, this one is never going to go. You know, this will be the cornerstone of my Les Paul collection going forward. Now, I started my Gibson journey with that Goldtop. It was my first Gibson. This was next, and the next guitar is also a Gibson. So let's have a look. Well, this was the most unexpected guitar purchase of the year. This is my 1966-67 ES355. In itself, it's a beautiful guitar, and it's you know, I love this guitar, but you'll see why this became so important later on. I went down to a vintage guitar shop in the west of England. Sorry, there's a lot of dust. In the west of England to film some videos for YouTube at ATB Guitars, and I got to play some a mid-50s Telecaster, some early 60s Strats, you know, Les Paul Customs and things like that. And I got to play an ES355 from 1963 that had original PAFs. And then I played this, and it was about a third of the price of that one because it doesn't have PAFs. It's a later model. It's they started to cut corners, I believe. It's got a thinner nut width. It doesn't feel like a super premium instrument, sorry. And you know, the binding's dodgy and it's played in, and I love it for that. I need to get the vibrola arm played around with and fixed. I want to get the varitone. I've got the actual knob, but it falls off. I want to get the varitone reinstated. And you'll see it was a stereo model, but been converted to mono at the front. Somewhere it would have had another output, I think. And you could basically play through two different amps. Now, this has a lovely feeling neck. It's much thinner than any of the Gibsons I played up to that point. It's got a real banjo-like tone, very woody, and the pickups being very low output really pick up that on that woodiness. It sounds so organic. And it's got that lovely cherry red look that I'd always wanted with some gold hardware. I wasn't really aware what a 355 was in comparison, but it was just the top of the line model, similar in many ways, but it has an ebony fretboard instead of a rosewood fretboard. It's supposed to have made it smoother. It's got triple binding on the back and the front. But this guitar I think needs a little bit of TLC from a luthier. I feel like as the weather changes around the year, it does change slightly, and I'm worried that something's going to happen to it. And you know, it's still my most expensive piece of equipment to date, probably, which is a precarious position to be in if you don't keep up with these things and keep them in perfect nick. So I'm going to take this down to someone who knows what they're doing, get it refret, talk about all these other things. But the bones of a beautiful, great guitar from the past that has been well loved are here. And I got it home that day from ATB. My wife didn't know I was going to buy a guitar. I don't think I knew I was going to buy a guitar that day. And I plugged it into my Tone King Sky King, and I sat there for 3 hours just playing and playing and playing and playing the tones that came out of it. So maybe I should play with this one as well. I haven't decided yet. I'm recording all the little playing clips at the end of all of this, so I'll make a decision. But you've seen this in other videos, and it will come up again, of course. But yeah, maybe I'll plug this in and we'll hear something in a second. Well, this is my beautiful Case Guitars J159. It's a stunning, stunning guitar. A modern, beautifully designed sort of retake of a classic model. Case Guitars are a father and son duo, started by John, the father, maybe 25 years ago, making handmade guitars. I spent a couple of days with them earlier this year. I was actually making a small documentary about how Case Guitars have gone 25 years selling incredible bespoke custom guitars and making them in their living room, kitchen and a few sheds in the back garden. Unfortunately, I didn't manage to make the film with lockdown and everything that happened. I had to put that one to bed, but while I was there, I had already ordered a guitar. I'd ordered what he calls a J35, an ES355, but then I bought my vintage 355, you know, the week before I was going to go down and make some decisions about things on that guitar and try out some of his other guitars. So unfortunately, he'd already started making that guitar. I think he's going to make it and keep it in stock. While I was there, I found this one and it was more expensive because it's made from old stock mahogany that's really old, very carefully selected wood. This is all handmade. I've seen John using a thumb plane to shape the top shape of these things, to make the neck by careful precision movements, and just beautiful choice of everything on here really. John was a graphic designer for many years, and you can tell he didn't want to make copies of Les Paul, you know, of Gibson guitars. So he's got his own curved shape, like you see at the base of the neck here. The inlays are his own sort of shape. The head obviously takes some influence from Paul Reed Smith, who I think in the field of making guitars in low production volumes was probably like the godfather and well revered by people in that industry. It plays like stink. It's got a mule pickup by bare knuckle here and a riff-raff pickup, slightly higher output here, and boy, it's a heavy sounding thing. I mean, gorgeous. It's still in that vintage camp. It doesn't over compress. It's got a lot of character. It's light. It's just great. It stays in tune. Everything just works well. These are Grover Deluxe tuners. He just picks everything, and then he does some of the best relicking work that you'll see. Spends a lot of time doing that, and he's figured out his own ways of doing things, creating good finish checking, stripping off areas without making it look too severe. And I've noticed by looking at vintage guitars that these little tiny dings are what tend to happen over the years through playing and through transporting, and that's what he does really well. Lots of just little areas where it would wear all around the sides and everything, rather than completely, you often just see that completely worn off bit, which may or may not be realistic. I don't think it's realistic. But anyway, this resonant guitar just sounds beautiful, and I love it. I've got 2 more Case guitars on order for next year. So yeah, they'll be getting their own spaces on the wall, and I'll let you know what those guitars are when I get them, probably in April or May. They take a good 9 months, and John makes a dozen to 20 guitars a year. So there we go. Okay, so here's really where the amps are gonna kick in. I'd already ordered another amp back in August, but it was gonna take sort of 8 to 10 weeks to arrive. And I was being very patient, really holding on. But didn't last that long until I decided I needed something else to play with. And there it is, the Suhr Hombre. This is a boutique amp but I don't want to say hand-built. It says assembled in the USA. Not quite sure what that means. Maybe the parts are made elsewhere and brought back in, who knows. All I know is this amp picked up a lot of press, let's say, a lot of excitement from people. And why is that? Well, because I think it's doing something that's slightly neglected, that brown face Fender thing. You see a lot about black face Fender amps and tweed amps, and then maybe next would be silver face. And brown face was only around for a couple of years in the early 60s. And famously, you know, I think most famously, Billy Gibbons of ZZ Top used that. It's got less compression than a tweed, more brightness than a tweed, more clarity and headroom. Much less headroom than a black face, much less glass than a black face. But it can do something in between, and I think that's why it's so exciting, really, because we all want a bit of natural compression in our playing without using pedals all the time. And that's where this amp comes in. Now, for a long time, I didn't fall in love with the amp. I was playing it on quite a thick carpet down in my living room, and it would just make this awful transformer noise, I like to think of it as. I don't know, there was a weird noise going on. It took me a couple of months to lift it up on some blocks and realise that I'd got it all wrong. The amp had so much more clarity than I thought it did, even at high volumes. But something I said a lot in my review of this amp is the volume level is high. It's an 18 watt amp, so it's supposed to be a deluxe size amp, not a Princeton. So it's very punchy, but it's got lovely clarity. I find it works really well with single coils and humbuckers, but probably best for me would be like a Les Paul or a Telecaster maybe. I mean, beautifully made, very light. I like light amps. I think everyone does. Great tremolo, no reverb. So that's what that, you know, has. And for me, this was really, it needed to fill that hole of that brown face Fender sound. Now, whether I'll ever buy a brown face, I might. I'm probably going to have a small collection of vintage Fender amps at some point, and first on my list would probably be a brown face amp. You know, I think they're an underloved era, really bridging that gap from real lo-fi 50s stuff, getting to much more of that clarity that we had later in the 60s. So yeah, Suhr Hombre is a nice amp. I don't think I'll keep it forever. Again, I might sell it, I might give it away. You know, who knows? I'd say my heart is not completely taken by this. It will be by lots of other people. But now that I'm in this room that doesn't have this thick carpet, I'm gonna play it a lot more, and we'll see where it goes. So the same week, a different amp arrived as well. The next amp to arrive was a Fender, and it's one of those Fender custom line amps, the Silverface 68 Vibrolux. Why did I go for this? Well, lots of reasons really. One of them, I was still waiting on this amazing amp that I'd ordered a while earlier that was going to be another month away, so I had this, I don't know, I needed to buy something. Yeah, it's a terrible affliction, and I just love the look of it really, but tremolo is just my favourite thing in guitar world really. That mixed with a sort of edge of breakup sound is really what I love, and I know the Vibrolux can do that really well. And I think Vibrolux in the Silverface, sorry, can give you quite a different thing from the Blackface. Blackface amps have a lot of headroom, and they can be difficult to compress in a home environment, let's say. This one has two 10-inch speakers. It fills a room nicely. In the end, I still often use it with an attenuator to give me the tone that I want. And recently I played this with a Les Paul at the beginning of a video, or actually a video about a Les Paul and the Vibrolux together. And I had so much fun that day playing with those two together. I think Fender have done a great job of bringing back to life some of these historic amps in this format, this custom format. Now this is not the hand-wired, it's not a hand-wired model. This was about £1,300. Normally the hand-wired stuff is over 2,000, and there wasn't one available. But I'm pretty happy with this amp. Again, I wouldn't keep it forever necessarily. If I came across a vintage amp or a hand-wired amp of a similar type, then I'd probably replace it, sell this one on, make space for that. But it does the job fantastically, and I think it's a great gigging amp for a lot of people into classic rock or into funk, into jazz, into, you know, all that sort of stuff. It really does the job, and it's at a nice volume level. So, you know, I like this amp. Along with the Suhr Hombre, it was doing a Fender thing for me that I really wanted, whilst I was waiting for what came next. But I think there's probably a guitar in between there, so let's see what happened next. Well, next came this sort of experiment. This is an Epiphone Les Paul 50s metallic gold. And why did I buy this? Well, I love gold tops. I wanted to try out some more Epiphones this year. Another guitar missing from this is my Epiphone SG. That's at another house where I keep it for when I'm there. I wanted to see how Epiphone are doing. But ultimately it's because I wanted to change the pickups on here now and again to try out different humbuckers. Well, in here at the moment we've got a pair of Custombuckers, which are the same pickups on my custom shop Les Paul. I picked these up from someone who bought a custom Les Paul but wanted to put something different in there, and they weren't cheap. These were £350. Now, I am going to give this guitar away. I'll make a video about that, but if you're watching now, this is going to be the 10,000 subscriber giveaway. So we're a few giveaways away from that, and quite a while. My aim for 2021 is to give this away at the end, hopefully. If not, it will happen hopefully in 2022, but it will go with the Custombuckers and with the original Epiphone pickups if you want them. You know, it's an impressive thing, this. Yes, it's not identical to a Gibson Les Paul. Should it be? No, it's a lot cheaper. About £550 instead of £1,850, up to £2,000 for a standard gold top, depending on where you get it from. But they've done a great job. It feels very much like a real thing, instrument. You could definitely gig with it, play it, record with it. There's clarity, there's accuracy in terms of 50s, similar neck to my other one. If anything, it's slimmer and a bit more comfortable. So it's a lovely guitar. I have so many now that it's very hard to say these things without sounding snobby, but there really isn't space for me to keep some of these guitars. And, you know, it might be that every year I want to try out the Epiphone, a different Epiphone model. So I'm really happy to give these away and to say thanks for people for watching, and give someone else a chance who's going to play this and love this and cherish it. Like, for 10 years I cherished my Epiphone SG massively. I really loved that old thing, and that's all I wanted. So yeah, this came next. What came after? Well, next we didn't just get that. I got that one as well. So let's talk about that. Yeah. So back in August, it was what, 5 or 6 months after the Tone King. If you remember, when I bought the Tone King, I was looking at Two Rock and I couldn't justify it. Well, by now I'd been playing guitar every day. I'd set my mind to have some goals for the next 1 to 5 years in terms of my playing and what I want to do with it. And I just couldn't get rid of the idea. So YouTube, again, I was flicking around, watching videos, watching Joey Landreth videos, Ariel Posen videos, Peach Guitars, where I really like the players there. Jack, who's the young guy, and then I think John is the manager or owner. He plays very SRV style, and then you had Mick from that pedal show playing with his Two Rock Classic Reverb. All of these guys playing in a style that I love, that I aspire to get to at some point. So I thought, I'm gonna just do it, I'm gonna order one. And this is the one I ordered, the Bloomfield Drive. There's a lot of opaqueness about Two Rock, I find, on the net. There's a lot of myth, legend, videos where they're played beautifully but no one explains anything, or they're played by guitarists who are way better than us average lot. and you just think, yeah, well, that's not realistic, and you don't know if there are pedals involved, you don't know anything really. So I thought, I'm gonna make it one of my things on my YouTube channel, is I'm gonna get the Two Rock amp, and then I'm gonna sort of unveil it, and I'm still in that process. I've still got lots of videos to do comparing the two amps, everything really. But if you watch my channel a lot, you'll know that I run a lot of my stuff through one or other at any given time, pedals and things. So just by being around on the channel, you get to see these amps all the time in the field, as you'd say. So the Bloomfield Drive arrived, and it's the 50 and 100 watt model. I plugged it in, and it blew my mind. The clean sound on that amp and the reverb are beyond anything I'd ever experienced by far. Way too good for me. And it's an aspirational thing to have that in the room. And to think one day I'm going to make that amp sing rather than that amp making me just sound slightly better than I am. That must have arrived, let's say, on a Tuesday. By the Thursday, I had this. This arrived, and the same afternoon, I just called up Peach Guitars, the guy I speak to there, Jeff, and I said, I really want a classic reverb now. And I ordered the 50 watt model because they didn't have 100 to 50 watt. And the 50 watt, sounded good. When it arrived, it was, unfortunately, they just picked up the wrong box, and it was the 40 to 20 model. And I sat there thinking, that's annoying. I want to plug it in and play. So I did plug it in and play. I emailed Peach and I said, look, you've made a mistake. Can you give me a week to decide if I want to send it back and get the 50 watt? They said, yeah, no problem. Anyway, after a week, I barely even thought about it again. It didn't cross my mind that there's anything lacking from this. Now I can only imagine how good the 100 watt amp is, but this is quite a vicious amp, really, the classic reverb. It's astonishingly beautiful sounding, but it also does that vintage Fender character. It does its own thing. It does some really great blues gain, edge of breakup and beyond, and it's loud, loud, loud. So I often play it on 20 watt. And with the Bloomfield Drive, I really love the 100 watt, and the master volume is incredible. And I don't actually love the 50 watt output on there, I don't know why. But on here the 20 watt is good, and occasionally I use the 40 watt and an attenuator. What more can I say? These amps are just beyond anything. I then had the whole thing where I ordered the silver sterling signature, and it took me a few weeks to decide actually I don't need a third Two Rock right now. I need some other amps to complement these amps. I went back to my Marshall and I thought I want to have something in that vein to pair up, because I've noticed the more and more I play that whenever I have both amps going, yes, I'm getting more Two Rock in the room, but I'm not getting the nice juxtaposition between different tones on different sides. So now I've discovered that really you use one Two Rock and one something else, and that's a really good mixture. So I'm not going to say too much more about the Two Rocks. They speak for themselves, and yeah, I love them though. If you ask me which one would I prefer, I'd say the classic reverb. The Bloomfield Drive is, for me, it's a tricky amp. I haven't got the best out of it. I did try the settings. Someone commented on one of my videos posting the settings they think they'd seen Joey Landreth use, and those settings actually work really nicely, but other people have contacted me to say they agree. It's a bit harsh on the lead channel, and I think it just needs breaking in more and playing more and more, so I play that a lot. But this is probably my number one amp. If I was going to say I play this amp, it would be the classic reverb. It's just the best amp I've come across. I absolutely love it, and I may well one day get the 150 watt mode as well. Who knows? But yeah, let's see what happened next. So the guitar behind me in that case, well, I bought this completely randomly. I'm going to explain how that happened in a minute, but I didn't know that when I received this, it was going to become my number one pretty much immediately that I plugged it in. sometime back in October, I was editing a video and just thought I'd take a break, and turned over and there was a live unboxing video on Peach Guitars, and I don't know why I watched the whole thing. It wasn't very short. It was about 45 minutes. I think it's because unusually Jeff, who's the guy I'd been dealing with on the Two Rocks, was presenting it because the other guys were all away that day. So I just wanted to see who he was because I'd been emailing with him. Anyway, quite a long way into the video, he said he'd got 2 unusual custom shop guitars that he was going to unbox. And he unboxed them, said that they looked gorgeous, nice feeling, put them back away. And I emailed him that minute. And I got a response back pretty quickly to say that one of them, that someone else had already shown interest and was going to purchase one. But if I put the money down first, I could choose which one I wanted. I said, give me the lighter one. So they gave me the lighter one. It's quite a light guitar. I can't remember the weight, maybe £8, something like that. A bit lighter than £8. It turned up, and I didn't plug it in straight away. I just sat there for a while, just getting used to the shape of it and looking down at it and thinking, thank God I saw that video, and thank God I was in a position at that minute to buy this guitar. I'm so glad it didn't pass me by, because I think they put out an incredible instrument here. This is probably the guitar that I feel most comfortable with. You know, I didn't buy it because it's the same colour as BB King's guitar. Subconsciously perhaps there's a connection there, but his is not the same as this. Was not the same as this. And Lucille is a guitar you can buy separately. This had its own vibe. To not have the baritone and all that stuff, it just looks like its own guitar. It's got the VOS finish, so it's got a sort of weird worn finish and some worn bits and pieces around it. It just felt played in enough that I'm not nervous to play it, which you can do with brand shiny new guitars. It's not really in tune, but I just can't help playing it when I pick it up. Then I vowed this was going to be the last guitar I bought for a long, long time, and it wasn't. So I know a few of you also love this guitar, and I promised someone if I ever hit 2 million subs, I'm going to order one of these from the custom shop for them. That'll be the grandest giveaway. But that one's already won by someone. 2 million subs. Sorry, mate. It's probably not going to happen, but if it does, I will stick to my promise. Okay, I think we got an amp next, but it might be another guitar. I just got to go back and check the records. Alright guys, we've got 2 more guitars and 2 more amps to go, and I'm very aware that this video is going to be a long one. Let me know down in the comments, next time should I split it up into parts? Of course next time I probably won't go through each individual guitar because we'll have done it this year, and so it'll only be about the new guitars and I'll just gloss over. So this will be the longest one I ever make probably, because there'll never be another year where I buy quite this many things. But this was next, and this is no doubt my favourite Paul Reed Smith guitar that I've played, even including my special semi-hollow body. This is the DGT model, David Grissom trem. It does have a trem arm. It's got vintage style, PAF style pickups. The bridge is pretty hot, and it also has a really nice treble note like a Telecaster bridge would. And this is pure, lovely, silky PAF. It's got single coil split, it's pull push, which I don't like, I prefer push push, but there you go. And then it's got, that's master tone and 2 volumes. The only odd thing is the bridge volume is here and the neck one is here. So I can only assume David Grissom himself plays a lot with the bridge pickup, or he blends in the bridge whilst keeping the neck in one position. It's, you know, I love gold tops. So I picked the gold colour for that reason, And these do come with a moon-shaped inlay, but I went for the birds inlay because I think any PRS I buy will probably have the birds. Knowing that Paul Reed Smith used to hand carve the first ones. It's just a great guitar. Probably the perfect guitar, to be honest with you. One of the most perfect guitars. Great for session stuff, great for gigging, great for mucking around on. It stays really well in tune. It comes with 11s on it, so I must remember to put 11s on. That's the feeling that they want, and it's got a nice beefy tone to it, but it can also do really, really good dynamic stuff. So yeah, I love this one. Next, I think we've got an amp, and then a guitar, and then the new amp to finish with. And unfortunately, the Friedman Dirty Shirley is not here today. It's been away for a while now, maybe a month, and I'm having it modded to add a couple of features, and it also needed a small repair, but we're going to talk about that in its own video. So what have we got next? It's the Dr Z Maz 18-NR Mark II. NR means no reverb, and this was my foray back into the world of EL type tube British sounding amps. After my Marshall JTM45, I bought so many American type amps. I wanted something different. So I got this because Peach Guitars use it on pretty much every video, so I had a good idea what it sounds like. I know that Dr. Z has incredible attention to detail. These have new old stock 6N 14N EL84 tubes from an original batch, and the quality is just something else. So from the minute I plugged in, I just knew this was something fantastic. It's just a great workhorse, brilliant gigging, studio, everything amp. Beautifully made, sounds fantastic. Great controls, a lot of control that you've got. Enough headroom, sounds great with pedals, and I really just love this amp a lot. And you know, it pairs up well with the Two Rocks. It gives that edge, that British punky rock edge that I love as well. And so you get the smooth and you get the bright edge, and it works so well together. After this, I managed to find on eBay an old Dirty Shirley by Friedman, and I got it for about half the price of a new one. Took it home, met the guy who I bought it on eBay from, took it home. He was selling it because he now had a Two Rock, and got it home, plugged it in, and it went psst, and it all died. And I thought, oh God, I've been had here on eBay. I never buy on eBay. So I emailed him or WhatsApped him, and straight away he sent a new rectifier tube. That's what we both decided it must be. Sent me a new rectifier tube, really nice one, maybe a Mullard, not sure. And I put that in the Dirty Shirley, and it worked straight away, so with a new fuse, so that was great. Then it was making quite a humming noise when none of my other amps were in that same room on using the same electricity. So I've sent it off to an authorized tech here in London, who, whilst it's there, has had a word with Dave Friedman about how to mod these amps, and is adding a couple of things to it. I won't tell you what, but they've also told me that it's actually a really fantastic early Dirty Shirley with great hand-to-hand, point-to-point wiring, and it's just immaculate in there, and a beautiful amp. So I think I did well on that one, but thanks, yeah, thanks for selling me that amp. So I can't show you that one. So we've got the last guitar and the last amp to go. Well, here we go. This is the last guitar that I've got to show you. It was not a purchase I'd intended on doing this year, but my heart again won over my head. And this guitar is a Broadcaster reissue sort of thing, 70th anniversary custom shop in the Journeyman finish. Probably my nicest guitar to hold in many ways. I don't know why. The black ES, my old Strat, my red ES, you know, they're all lovely, but don't know. This feels like the beginning, doesn't it? Feels like you could go a whole lifetime with this one guitar and be happy it could do everything. from jazz to skiffle to blues to more modern blues to rock to everything. Leo Fender made a perfect design right from the beginning, really, and everything that comes afterwards is really a take on this instrument. So I'm supremely happy to have this. Now, I bought this because back when I went to ATB Guitars and tried my red ES, there was a Butterscotch 55 white guard Telecaster that I loved, but it was a little bit out of my reach then. By the time I figured out how I might be able to buy it 3 weeks later, it had sold, and I was not happy. But I think this guitar is better. My little foray into vintage guitars with the red ES has told me something. We're all looking maybe for the wrong thing. Certainly spending that much on an instrument and an old one, it's not going to give you a better guitar. Of course, there are going to be incredible finds out there. There's going to be doozies, there's going to be special ones that came off the line somehow. But frankly, everything's improved since then in most ways in terms of manufacture now. It's a minefield to discuss that, so I might not go any further in this video, but you can find modern made instruments, whether they're harking back like the sort of guitars that I love, or are completely modern in their thinking. They're probably going to be better instruments for most things, for recording, for gigging, you know? So a lot of these vintage purchases are more passion projects. But this reissue, best of both worlds, it feels old, sounds old, but it feels like it would last me 100 years. So what are my favourite 3 guitars? This one, the black ES, and the R9 Les Paul are my 3 favourites. Those are the 3 I couldn't let go of. But then I have close attachment to my Fender Strat, that's going nowhere. My vintage red ES, I love. I think if someone offered me the same money I paid for it, I could probably let go of it. The PRS models are just perfect. They don't necessarily get me though in the heart. My blue Telecaster I just love looking at. I don't think I'd get rid of it. I'm going to change that bridge pickup. My case guitars are just incredible. You know, not many people are going to get to play them, so it's difficult to say, unlike with the Gibson Fender Paul Reed Smith where you get a chance to go in a shop and play it. I don't use it too much on the channel because there's nothing for you to compare it with, but it is an exceptional instrument. What is the new amp that I bought? Well, I'm going to close out with that in a minute. I'm going to show you what it is and play something through it. But let's have a little chat just for a minute about what's coming in the next year. Well, first thing to say is this may now be a 2-part video, so this might be the end of the second part. This is probably going to be an hour's worth of video, I imagine. So I hope you've stuck with me this long. Well, in the next year, what have I got planned? Well, I've moved into my studio, so I'm planning to get this finished off. I've got acoustic treatment to do. I've got some bass traps on the way, so they're going to hopefully help rein in that low end that can boom too much. I've got a soundproof door, which is going to help my family. That's coming. I've got acoustic curtains, which should stop a lot of this echo and any road noise that's coming in, or a lot of road noise that's coming in. And then I'm going to put loads of guitars on the wall, so hopefully it's going to look cool. I'm probably going to do the cliched thing now with some pedal shelves and all that. That's what everyone's doing. But it does look good, so I like that. And what am I going to do in terms of amps and guitars? Well, I've already got 2 case guitars on the way. As I said, they'll be around March, April or May. I'm not going to necessarily tell you. But there's one type of guitar that I haven't got. Well, I've sort of got. So I've got my Epiphone SG, which is over in France at our house there. And that's going to stay there forever as my France guitar. You know, it's nice enough that I want to play it, but I'm not worried about it if it gets stolen or flooded or anything. But I want a cherry red Gibson SG. So I'm going to be on the lookout for either a vintage one or just something special. You know, I'm not in a rush anymore to buy any guitars because I've got everything covered, all my bases, apart from a great SG at home. And so apart from an SG, the other guitar in the next year that I would be interested in would be either a Taylor or a Martin or a Gibson acoustic. I don't play that much acoustic, but as I start to record, there's going to be a lot of acoustic involved in terms of rhythm guitar and everything, and I love the sound of a big acoustic guitar. So an SG, an acoustic, and then maybe a custom shop Strat. That's an option, potentially. That may not be 2021 though. I'll never say no to building a Les Paul collection, so I'm missing out on a Black Beauty sort of custom, and so that's one option that I could go down. I want a 335, so I've got these 355s which have a very smooth, beautiful sound. 335s are a little bit more edgy, a bit more rocky. They've got different materials that they use, and they just feel a bit more casual. There's something so grand about the 335, which I love. And then definitely looking for a single pickup guitar. So whether that's an SG Junior, Les Paul Junior, or a Collins guitar, like they've got an SG Junior type thing, or yeah, something along those lines, I think could be really cool. A single pickup guitar or an Esquire type. But really, apart from looking for those guitars, I'm going to be looking at new pickups for a few of my guitars, which is going to be a great fun journey that we can all do. And I'm going to be trying out some lower price guitars that I'm going to also involve in giveaways. So the second tier of PRS guitars, I think they're the SE models. More Epiphone Squire I've not got into yet. And these things are great because I can buy them, they're not too expensive. Do a review, which is really useful to a lot of people, but then I could give them away, but maybe with some interesting pickups along with them. So that could be exciting giveaways that people really want to get involved in. And just to talk of myself and the channel, I want to grow the channel. Of course I do, who wouldn't? So I'm just going to put a lot of energy into it, a lot of energy into improving my playing, improving my filming and my sound capture, and everything for you guys to enjoy in 2021. And my aim is to get that 10,000 sub giveaway done at the end of the year. So I hope that's not too mad of a goal. There'll be a few giveaways along the way. We're nearly at the 1500 mark for that ODR1 pedal. And if you haven't subbed and commented yet, please do. That should be about a month from now. Then we'll do a 2,000 subscriber giveaway, a 3,000, and then we'll go from there. So get involved, follow along with whatever rules I put out there, and you can win some great pedals and eventually some really cool guitars and pickups. So all that's left is for me to show you the new amp. Put your guesses down in the comments, and let's see what it is. So there you go, that's the amp I've been waiting to show you guys for quite a long time now. I probably received it well over a month ago, but I just didn't get around to it with all the 12 pedals of Christmas and everything. It's the Morgan MVP 23. Morgan is a company I've been interested in for a while. I know there was a bit of controversy around Morgan a while ago, but I'm not too sure what that was all about. Maybe you can enlighten me in the comments. All I know is from what I've heard, a lot of pro players love using Morgan. MVP stands for Master Volume Power Scaling, so it could be MVPS really, couldn't it? And I bought this amp based entirely on the recommendation of someone in the comments when I said I was looking for one more amp. And they recommended an Andertons video with Mick Taylor and Danish Pete from about 2 or 3 years ago. And it sounded fantastic, and I just thought it was the right sort of thing for me. The power scaling is great. I love anything with attenuation, and if I don't have to plug my own attenuator in, great. And I like the size. It's small, but decent wattage in that sort of 23 watt range. There is an MVP 66, which is much bigger, has different sorts of tubes. This is EL84. The MVP 66 is the tubes with the number 66 in, which I can't remember off the top of my head. It's been a long day. Yeah, Morgan themselves say it's a blues breaker to Dumble-esque sort of amp. I'm not 100% sure yet. As I haven't been playing it on the channel, I've only played it for about 2 days when I first got it, and then it hasn't been played in about a month. But I'll do a standalone video about this amp. I just wanted to show you guys what it was. It's giving me another palette of colours to play with, and it's got its own sort of tone. It's not just distinctly a Marshall sort of thing. As they say, it's also a Dumble sort of thing. It's got a thickness of tone, a really nice compression. It's just gorgeous sounding. I'm yet to decide which speakers it works best through. I tried it with the Dirty Shirley cab, and I've tried it with the Two Rock cabs. I don't have my Dirty Shirley cab here at the moment. It sounded great through that, so it might be better off with that rather than these. The power scaling feature is amazing. So really, that's it for this this year's first edition of All My Gear. And that All My Gear is that guitar and amps, not pedals. Otherwise, we'd be here forever. But as I said, this will never be this long again. I hope some of you have made it to the end. You know, it's been fun for me to sort of go back through what happened this year in terms of my guitars and amps. And I hope a lot of you have enjoyed the journey. And I'll be back very soon in the next few days with the next video, something a lot shorter, I imagine. But if you've got this far and you've not subscribed to the channel, please do, and give this video a thumbs up. I'll see you next time. Cheers.